Hey guys, today a video about using point and shoot type cameras to capture underwater video in underwater pictures. So stick around. Hey guys, Joe here, and I'm in Destin, Florida, an amazing area. So it's great visibility for scuba diving and even better visibility for underwater photography and cinematography. So I have some projects going on over here, and I thought along the way I'd share some of how I capture the imagery for the projects we're doing and maybe a few tips and tricks along the way. So stay tuned, keep watching. Hope you enjoy. Subscribe, like, thumbs up. Thanks for watching. And for this video, I want to discuss using a PowerShot camera for both an underwater camera and also an underwater video camera. And recently I utilized a PowerShot G7X Mark II while filming a snorkel reef construction project in Destin, and I wanted to share with you what I liked about it. So first off, this is a very small and compact camera, and that's great because it makes it very easy to take anywhere and it's not very complicated. This combined with the housing that Canon provides, when you put it together, it's still very small, and that makes it very convenient and something that can be accessed quickly and taken just about anywhere. And so, for example, I actually utilized this camera in this housing while scouting snorkel reef sites for this particular project. And what was neat about this is I could literally walk to the beach, and I had this little camera in my hand, just swam out to the snorkel reef sites and took some imagery to kind of get an idea how everything looked and all that kind of stuff. It was very simple. I didn't have to prepare the much bigger professional camera with all the complexities associated with that. And the other thing about this is it being a relatively small camera and much less expensive than the professional cameras is you don't have the stress and anxiety when using this camera. So when I'm swimming around these snorkel reefs, I'm just not as worried as much as I would be if I was carrying the bigger professional cameras. So this was nice. And it turns out I actually utilized some of this footage captured during the scouting events in the final published video. And you can see some of that footage here. The cool kind of tech specs with this camera is it's small, but inside it still has a 1-inch image sensor. And that's relatively big for a small camera like this. And what's nice about a 1-inch image sensor in a small camera is that larger image sensor helps basically get better quality imagery in low lights. It's kind of a simple way to look at it, which is a great thing, especially for underwater filming and underwater photography, because obviously we lose some light with depth in water and so on and so forth. The caveat to that is you have to be a little bit more spot on with your focus, especially at lower aperture settings on the camera. There's pros and cons to that. The pro is that if you do want some bokeh in your shot, some background blur, you can definitely do that with this camera. But at the same time, if you want sharp contrast on the subject that's in focus, you just have to be dialed in better. And that's just one of the trade-offs with a larger image sensor camera. You get a little bit shallower depth of field. The other big benefit about this is you have full manual control on this camera. And when I say that, I mean you can basically control your shutter speed, you can control your aperture settings, and you control your ISO settings. Those are the big three exposure settings for operating cameras, and you have full control on those settings with this camera. Now, this camera also has image stabilization built in it, and that sounds great, and it probably works pretty well, but I haven't used it too much. What I actually prefer to do, and another benefit of this camera is you can shoot up to 60 frames per second, which is great because if you want to in post, you can slow the imagery down, but that slowing that speed down will take out some of that handheld jitter you might have. So I prefer to film at a higher frame rate and then slow it down in post if I need to kind of polish out any shakiness in the footage itself. However, you do have some image stabilization in here, but I wouldn't expect that image stabilization to be the same as a gimbal or anything like that. So I prefer shooting at higher frame rate and then slowing it down in post. And it's great that we have those high frame rates in here to be able to do that. Now, I actually really like this camera for underwater photography, especially underwater flash close-up shots. This camera does phenomenally well when subjects are very close when you use the onboard flash. The flash actually can shoot through the housing through this diffuser. If you're very close to a subject, you use the flash on this camera, you're gonna get some great shots. And I actually prefer this little point and shoot camera in many cases for close-up shots than utilizing the big professional cameras with the big flashy strobes. You can get much closer to the subject. This is much less intimidating to the subject underwater. It's easier to get closer to the subject. You don't have to worry about manipulating external strobes. You can use the onboard flash. You can get very close, which is great. And I'm going to show you an example of a picture now. The contents of this picture was captured as near zero visibility. However, I was able to take this camera and get it very, very close, and that way the flash didn't have far to travel and reflect back into the camera, so all the turbidity in the water wasn't much there because it was such a short distance. So for underwater macro type flash shots, these little cameras are pretty phenomenal because you can utilize that onboard flash and you can get very close. So I think the G7X Mark II is a great tool to have in the underwater photographer, underwater cinematographer toolkit. The small size and agility to do what it can do is just great. It takes pretty good quality stuff. I actually use it as a backup camera quite a bit. It gets the job done, and its compactness and its simpleness to use and its full manual control really goes a long way and can capture some great imagery. So I'm very impressed with it. Now the good news is I've made this video a little late now because I've actually just released the G7X Mark III, the newer version of this. So I presume that you're gonna be able to find this camera even cheaper now, which is great because it was relatively inexpensive already, at least in consideration with pro type gear. So for a relatively inexpensive camera, you can get some great quality out of these little things. So I really like this camera a lot, and I think there's a lot of potential for the point and shoot cameras if you get the right one and you know how to use it. So thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, go ahead, give it a thumbs down. Feel free to share any questions or comments regarding the use of a PowerShot type camera underwater. And thanks for watching. I'm Joe Kestel.